I'm Mike Sheridan, and you're very welcome to The Delve. Phil Jupitus is one of the most recognisable comedians in Ireland and the UK. The stand-up and poet has appeared in the long-running panel shows Never Mind The Buzzcocks and QI and built a broad admiration amongst his peers and comedy fans. Phil joins a bunch of other talented comedians at the Vodafone Comedy Carnival in Galway from Tuesday the 23rd of October until the 29th. Thanks so much for coming in, Phil.
Pleasure, yeah.
I appreciate it. It's lovely to have you in here. Somebody I've watched on television for, it seems like forever, but you also seem like you haven't aged.
No, I am blaming the beard, which is I've gone into a next phase. It's basically a fur chrysalis, and so when my entire body is covered in this weird down, and then I'll go into a sleep-like phase and then emerge in about 8 years, I think. I don't know how or why. Yeah, here's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I always wanted a beard when I was a little kid. Quite like it. I always liked bearded men, which is a weird thing to say as well. But no, so it's my stepdad. Both my stepdads had beards, and so I always liked, the company of bearded men. Again, which is a very.
Did you find it tough to grow a beard? Is that it?
Going well. Yeah, no, that was it. I'm not naturally beardy, but it came in late.
Yeah.
At least it arrived, which is cool.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly soft. It's not. I can see from here that yours is one of those you can wipe your feet on. Like
it's
coconut
stubbly.
matting.
Yeah.
Proper. I bet you had that when you were like 8, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I think about to start shaving before I was a teenager. Yeah.
Your shaving badge.
My mother said I came out hairy, which is a lovely thing to say. She normally waits till people are around me before she says the stuff as well, which is lovely.
That's what mums are great at, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. It's like if I ever do jokes in front of my mother, she does this thing where she just looks. In fact, I'll do it down the pipe so the audience can see. So I'll do a joke and my mum will look at me and go, "Yes, that's funny." And that's exactly what, just completely stone-faced. Never laughs, just goes, "Yes, that's funny."
Is that where it started for you, just trying to make people laugh at home?
No, I think if you find out that you've got a propensity for being able to do this in life, then, I mean, weirdly, a lot of the funny people I know don't do this. So it's like my brother-in-law is hilarious. I mean, properly. As a storyteller, I don't know anyone. He was like Billy Connolly on a golden night. My brother, and then there was always a point. It's point 2 to point 4. You go north of point 4, then he starts to lose it a bit. And before point 2, he's not got enough juice in him. But there's that window. There's a 2-point window where you just want to be around him, because all the stories start coming out, particularly if he's in mixed company as well. And he just starts talking about life at school or life on the building sites. And it's gold, it really is. It's amazing. But we've all got funny mates who, if you put them, in an on-stage situation, they couldn't function. So it's just...
Is that what it is? Because you're right, like I've got friends who I think would be brilliant stand-up comedians who are just naturally hilarious, but it's having the balls, I suppose, to go on stage and fail.
The thing is that willingness to make yourself vulnerable is what gives people the fear and why people won't entertain it as something to do. But it's like and I mean this in the loveliest possible way. It's like Ireland is the land of bullshitters. It's everyone's got a story, haven't they? And so there was a mate of mine was talking about this idea he had of just driving around. He wanted to do a TV series where he just drove from pub to pub and then just went in and went, "Who's got the best stories?" And just talked to the bloke with the good stories, The best
true stories, less hands would go up, probably, I would say. But you started out as a poet, right? You started out going on stage as a poet.
Well, yeah. So I discovered comedy accidentally off the back of it. So the poems were light-hearted, funny, political. It was the early 80s. Thatcher had got in like 6 years. She was on her second term. And, the country was in a funny old place where the miners' strike was just about to kick off. It was a weird time. Not as weird as it is now.
You think stuff like that can never happen
when you look back at Thatcherism as being a golden era of rose-tinted loveliness, then that gives you an idea of the mess we're in now. But, and I was doing the poetry and it was the chat between the poems turned into stand-up. The introductions just got longer and longer, and I found I was doing less poems and more chatting between the poems, and so
was that because you were getting laughs from the audience and you thought I'm going to expand on this?
But I didn't know that was a thing. Just that chatting and people laughing, because I thought comedians were people that remembered a list of jokes and told them. I thought that's what a comedian was.
Some do, yeah.
Yeah, but this is But I that kind of the more sort of absurdist storytelling side of it, I didn't know was a form until I kind of remember when I was 14 seeing Steve Martin on Parkinson, the chat show in the UK, and I'm like, and this guy was mad, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a thing. You can do that. That's an act. Just that absurdist going here, going there, playing a song, stopping the song. During the interview, he cut Michael Parkinson's tie off with dressmaking scissors. He just went and then put it in his pocket. And I remember Parkinson said, Mary bought that. I remember him saying, Mary bought that. Yeah.
And Steve Martin was selling out football stadiums.
In America,
he got to the point where he thought he was too big. And he
did. There's a really, his book about stand-up,
brilliant book.
Yeah, Born Standing Up, is, I think it's, because it's quite short, it's a really easy read. And I think anyone that performs should read that book. And particularly anyone that becomes a focus. I mean, all solo performers, anyone that stars in anything. It's a very interesting book about the artificial nature of attention when you're the focus of attention and what it brings you, because he's a very, very quiet, ordinary bloke, really, Steve Martin. He did philosophy as a degree at university, so he's a philosopher. He's an art enthusiast, and he likes looking at art and thinking. He's not really but people that act, they think, oh my God, I'm going to meet him. And then he was always really low energy. And
do people have a certain perception of what it's
yeah,
like
I think,
to meet
but
you as
with
well?
everybody, yeah. I started to realise, that people were coming up, and you try to kind of, I can't turn that guy. The guy on the stage doesn't exist. He's not real. He's just me at work, and you turn that energy on, but you don't turn it on in the street and start alpha mailing it in front of strangers. How rude would that be? So people come up and they're always a bit surprised. I'm quite sort of low energy out in the wild. I mean, I'm not a dick. There was a weird sort of misconception. The funny thing is, there was these things on the internet saying, oh, he's really rude in public. And this thing, and a mate told me, there's loads of people saying you're rude in public. And I went, wait, those people are twats. That's because someone's come up to me being a twat and I've just not given them the time of day.
Yeah.
So, I don't care if I was rude to idiots, but people that are polite and nice and quiet. And people can get incredibly... The thing that you notice, I'll do it for you now. I've got look, I just kicked your sign.
You're grand.
Which I think it's a lovely sign.
It's a lovely sign, isn't it?
Beautiful
Don't mind
sign.
that on YouTube.
This kind of, it's not really a pink, is it? It's more of a...
Off red.
It's an off red.
Yeah,
it's nice. I like it.
Retro as well. It's a bit retro.
I know. But it does look like it says Belv.
We have a branding issue.
Don't get me wrong. I think Delve is great, but it does look like it says Belv. The Belv. What's a Belv? It sounds like a piece of Ping Belv. It's a piece of Victorian diving equipment. Don't forget your belve when you go down below 400 fathoms. Always have a belve. So no, I'll do. Oh no, that's not in there. I've got. Yeah. So they do the selfie. In fact, I'm going to do a live selfie on Delve now, with the beautiful sign, Belve. I'm going to do a live selfie now with your sign. There we go. But when the punters go, can we have a selfie, please? You go, yeah, and you stand there, and that.
Yeah.
Do you see that? And then I go, give it to me. And so I always take the picture. I always grab the camera off them, and some of them get a bit, what are you doing?
You're going to steal my
phone. So that's now my gimmick to interact with them. I went, look, I do this more than you. Give me the camera, because I know better angles as well. And people are always like, because I always lift it a bit higher. And I go, oh, yeah, because that takes the chin up. If I do the lift higher, I only have one chin. I know all
That's
the
an experienced television man.
All the tricks
stage,
right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like getting an art director for your selfies. So, yeah.
I think the two worst things probably to be famous for, if there are two bad things to be famous for, are, I'd say, as a professional fighter, professional boxer, MMA, whatever it is, UFC fighter, and a comedian, because you're going to get drunk people thinking, I can have a go at this.
Yeah.
And it's the same for.
I mean, weirdly, it did affect me that I did basically stop going out. You know, I used to be quite active. Used to love going to the pub on a Friday night and a Saturday night. And once I was in the game, once I was a sort of professional wise ass, that stopped. I just couldn't go out. Once telly kicked in, and then you go out, and that is exactly that. It's just, it's always the bloke comes up. My mates told me you're famous. I don't know who you are. So why did you know that happens? So and I'm like, well, and I know what this is. The bloke there, he wants to be an alpha. So he went, I watch me go and slag this bloke off, and so that's him showing off to his friends. So that's the behaviour of a toddler. So that's like just basic crowd psychology. And I'm just always quite polite to those. I'm always like, oh really? Okay, well yeah, well you know, why would you know me?
Fair enough.
And then when you get, well, why would you? Well, they said yeah, but, you know, I don't know who you are. Yeah, but I'm not, I thought you didn't know me. You know, you can tie them up quite quickly. But that's so kind of tiring, and that's like doing a gig. You don't want to be putting heckles down in the wild. So I just stopped going out. It was fine. I've got books to read, films to watch.
At a certain point, when that started to happen, did you ever think about pulling back from doing the TV stuff?
No, not really.
It's your job.
I think it's a side. It's a you know, people handle it in a different way. You know, I've known people over the years who, when they're off the stage, you have no claim on them whatsoever. I've seen people who just completely shut down when punters come up to them. I mean, totally kind of like stare at them, and then won't have photos done. And it's like, and they're very kind of, no, that is my job, and I'm not at work now. You can ask me when I'm at work, not now. And so, but whereas I'm a bit sort of, well, it's quicker to just do the photo and say thanks for watching. And some people are genuinely, God, the weirdest one. Do you know the heavy metal festival Download?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yes. It happens every year in early June. Brilliant thing. I used to go to that a lot. I remember being there one year and I was stood watching, who was I watching? Might have been Real Big Fish. And I was watching this amazing band. And there's a guy turned around and he saw me. And he tapped his girlfriend on the shoulder and pointed at me. And she turned around and she burst into tears and started shaking. At meeting me. And I'm like, so what do you do with that? So I kind of just literally had to go, look at me. I'm just like your boyfriend. I'm just a bloke. Look at me. I'm just a bloke. I just do a weird. She was like shaking. And I stayed with her for about 10 minutes and talked her down. And they did a photo. But God,
did you ever explain why she was just? She was
just really,
just
couldn't believe she was meeting. And I'm like, oh, that's Beatles level reaction. That's just like, we don't want Beatlemania.
I think there's something with when you've been kind of in people's consciousness for so long from so many different shows over the years.
You're part of the cultural noise of their life. That's all it is. And so that's why now when I tour, I wander around at the interval. I go into the crowd and I'm like, thanks for coming. I thank everybody for coming. And I occasionally have a packet of biscuits with me. So I hand out biscuits and thank them for coming. And, chat. What are you doing? Oh, yeah. Seen anyone else? You know, who else have you seen live lately? That sort of thing. And it's because my level, you know, when I gig in the UK now, my level is about, I reckon I'll get as many people as like a mid-ranking, mid-80s indie band would get if they reunited and played, you know. Pretty much anywhere I go in the UK, 100 people will come and see me. So and I'm very, very happy with that. Yeah. That's a living, you know. As long as I keep coming up with new things to talk about and, you know, different ways of engaging with the crowd, I quite like that. But I'm massively indisciplined. That is both a problem and also, I think, an advantage, because I'll go from thing to thing. If you look what I've done over the last 15 years, so it was breakfast radio DJ, musicals, you know, stand up, back to poetry, back to doing the Fringe every year, UK tours. I did a UK tour where I pretended to be 3 different blokes and did a Q&A. So that was improvised every night. So I pretended to be an old actor, a submarine captain from the Second World War, German, and me from the future, and just did it completely on questions from the audience. But, you know. Is
that where the hype kind of comes from then when you're, you know, because you look at the panel shows that you've done?
Well,
yeah, and I think you have to be on the ball.
It was literally a way of kind of, how can I do what I do on the panel shows in front of an audience? And then you create a structure that is that just comes off of them. And then I thought, well, I can't just do questions with the audience. That's cheap. But then I thought the character thing, and so the character thing was much more. And so the Vernon Herschel Harley, who was the actor, he could only, if you asked me a question about a particular actor, I'd always work with them. So I'd have to always go, oh yes, yeah, no, Jack Nicholson and I were very, very different. Jack and I we were very keen at equestrian events. We used to like gymkhanas, and just that. And then you're off and running. You just think of something daft that you do together, and then that sort of thing. And so that was good fun. And then the Second World War guy was great, because people would always ask, if they asked the question that they ask the Second World War guy about, computers. And I used to have a big sign on stage that said when I died, and I just used to point to the date of death, and then not even talk, just point at it, and then go back. Next question, please. That's always good fun. So yeah, and that was, I think that the interesting thing about stand-ups is that sometimes when they're being the most selfish and indulgent, you get stuff that you won't ever see in a room again. And that's what I liked about those improv gigs, was I said stuff that was really great that only existed for one night. I'm a great believer in, the live nature of performing. Why does everything have to be recorded and filmed and put on YouTube, for God's sake? Let's just...
That's something that a lot of comedians are doing now as well. At the bigger venues, is that they put, Chris Rock did it, where you have to put your phone in a bag. I know it's a set system. Is that something that you would do? Because there's an element of a burning material.
I know. I'm not bothered about that. I don't like them filming it just because But again, I only have 100 people. I can please 100 people, and I say at the beginning, if you see anyone filming, just tap them on the shoulder and say don't. And then if you say that at the beginning, then people are less likely to, But I've been in the middle of a bit, and I've been in the middle of a bit where I'm talking like this, and I go, stop fucking filming me now. And I look right at them. I'll be in the middle of a poem looking that way, and then they're over there, and I went, and they've all grown up in the Beano. Dennis Menace has got pubic hair. Stop fucking filming me now. And then I make them put the camera away. I went, and then I always say, let's just have this night to ourselves, shall we? And then the audience quite often applaud that, Why does everything have to be posted online? And
that's just something
I understand why you want to do it, but please don't.
Yeah.
And people, and again, if I'm not a dick about, that's not being a dick about it. That's just,
Yeah,
that's
fair
just
enough.
being in charge,
It's like any kind of performance, be it theatre or whatever.
I mean, God, that when you're at a gig and you just see phones. Have you had that when you've been to a gig and you just see a sea of
you're watching through a
pale lights, and I'm like, it's the nature of progress, I'm very much feel like I'm the old man in The Simpsons. I don't understand telephones.
Yelling at clouds. Old man yelled at clouds.
That's it. Yeah, it is that.
With the Never Mind The Buzzcocks and QI, there's a real art form to how quick you have to be in those scenarios, and in QI in particular, you'd see you leave Stephen Fry, who's probably a genius. I think he's an amazing man. He's a hilarious man, and you would leave him speechless. And like endlessly, countless times. And how difficult is it to get into a space where you can come back?
It's very much about switching off.
Yeah,
I think if you
really,
can't,
it's the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, but that's something that you learn over 20 years of doing panel games, which is when you started doing them, you're like, I've got to be funny. I've got to do things. I've got to get my jokes in. Whereas if you go into it if you treat a panel game like a dinner party, what do you do at a dinner party? Before you go to a dinner party, anyone out there watching, before you go to a dinner party, do you write material? Or do you just go and listen to what people are saying, and then the night will get... And once I stopped trying to put jokes in and just listen to what other people were saying, the shows got better. And admittedly, I'm telling you now, that took me 10 years to realise. And it was... On Buzzcocks, I was floundering badly,
Buzzcocks could be could get harsh.
Yeah, it was.
It
was getting a bit, and it had that energy to it sometimes, which I was never the big fan of. That's why I liked it the later years. I really enjoyed the later years with Noel, because me and Noel were like, we want to have a laugh, don't we? We both kind of said, we don't want to slag anybody off. We just want to have a giggle. And whereas, earlier iterations of Buzzcocks, people were booked to be mocked. I think, almost definitely. Deliberate bookings to rip the piss out of them.
That's kind of uncomfortable to watch sometimes, isn't it?
And there's another interesting phenomena that I noticed, which is you'd have a guest on and they'd be brilliant. You'd have them back again and they were even better. And then the third time they died on their hole.
Got too confident.
Because the third time they think they're funny rather than just being themselves. And so that happened with Dappy from N-Dubs, who was a very unself-aware boy. And Bez from the Happy Mondays. Third time Bez came back. Although the third time Bez came back, I think he'd had something. So, you know, I remember looking around and his eyes were doing that in his head. They were literally independently spinning. It was like, you know, the things on a car, those hubcaps that roll and go in different directions. That's what his eyes were doing. I remember it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life. He just looked round at me and his eyes were doing that. It was amazing.
Buzzcocks always struck me as the kind of show that was like, you know, you had a camera in a bar with a bunch of comedians talking, because there's this energy and abuse that just flies back and forth between comedians. So it felt natural.
Well, it was. I think that having people not from comedy was interesting, and again, that's why it got better in the later years, where, you know, in the kind of the preparation for the show, you know, you're making an entertainment television show, and so there'd be a bit of preparation. Sometimes people go, oh, could you give me a joke? And sometimes writers would be there to give jokes to the musicians. And once all of us stopped doing that and just in the afternoon chatted with each other, what you've been up to lately, what you're doing, oh, you're touring, how's the album going, this, that and the other. And then you say to them, look, when we're out there tonight, I can't tell you what's going to happen. It's just going to be the seven of us out there playing a quiz and just have a laugh like you're playing a pop quiz. And if the funny, don't worry about the funny not coming, because, you know, the edit will make you look funny, and it's not in our interest for you to have a bad time. And I remember one of the lads, I think it was Shane from Boyzone, came on, and I think he thought it was the old rule, and I think he thought he'd been booked to have the piss ripped out of him. It was me and Noel. It was one of the early ones me and Noel did with guest captains, and he came on, and he had the time of his life. He came up to us both after me. He said, "Thank you so much. That was brilliant. I thought you were just going to rip the piss out of me. And I just had a laugh with everybody." And it's one of your...
At a certain time...
No, Westlife. Yeah. Westlife, not Boyzone. Sorry. I'm not really up on that. I should really know, shouldn't I?
Westlife's apparently making a comeback. There you are now.
Are they?
Yeah, apparly. Yeah, so I heard. That's going
I'm
around the grapevine.
I'm looking over. I've got an expert in the corner.
Yeah, I'm in.
It's Brian from Westlife. Brian, are you making a comeback? You really? Put that away, Brian. So, yeah.
And you've done a little bit of acting over the years, and people would have recognised you from Mike Bassett, which is just a cracking character and one of those. Because I wouldn't say it's a seminal film. It probably should have been, but it's a cult classic.
Oh no, it was honestly such a joy to be asked to do it. It's the only one I've ever done. We filmed in Brazil at the Maracana Stadium. We were the last thing to be filmed at Wembley before they knocked it down. You know, it was just lovely to do, you know. And Ricky Tomlinson is the most extraordinary actor. There's a scene towards the end where it's that scene where he's having the press conference and they've lost all the games. And that's that scene that finishes him with him saying, "We're playing 4-4-2. That scene there. And it's him, he's there rocking back and forth and he's reciting If by Kipling to himself. And we did 5 takes of that, and each time he did something different with his energy. And on the last one, he started crying while he's reciting it, but properly crying. And like me and the other actors playing the journalists all genuinely were like, "What's he doing?" and went really quiet. And then with tears in his eyes, he went, "We're playing 4-4-2. I don't think they used that take in the film.
Because you would have gotten that genuine reaction from you guys as
it
well, because it's something you're not expecting.
Yeah. It was Steve, the director, was so good at, and the only note he ever gave me. The thing is, when you're a stand-up, this is the thing about me and acting, and why I don't think we ever really got on, is as a stand-up, you are the scenery, you are the story, you are the actor. You know, you're everything. You're all of it. You're the producer. You're all of it. You're the whole thing. And, you know, rather than part of a greater whole. And I think that's a skill, to be a proper actor. I learned a lot. When I did Midsummer Night's Dream at Theatre Royal Bath with some people that had been at the RSC. You know, Forbes Mass and Daryl De Silva. and a bunch of others, and I just learnt so much from that mob who were just really, really. It's the first time I've worked with lots and lots of great actors, but over the years in many, many things, but that was a proper kind of, it's this, and it's about discipline that I don't have. Oh, but not willfully. It's only because as a stand-up, you have to do your own thing.
Is that when you say discipline, does that mean sitting down and write material at a certain point every day?
No,
or is it going on tour?
I think that it's the on-stage discipline.
Yeah.
I think the indiscipline on the stage can be a positive thing if you're a solo performer, but not in a production where you have to, you're responsible to other people,
Can you see the difference now with kind of newer comedians, and maybe they want to be performers and they're not quite sure what they want to be, but they know they can't play an instrument, so they just want to be in front of people. Can you see the difference with them than as opposed to somebody who's just naturally funny and who you see as somebody who could make it or who could tour?
No, it's the thing is that there's you can just see very quickly the quality is apparent. You just need to watch 10 minutes of anybody and you'll know whether they're any good or not. You only need 10 minutes, and you can tell. It's if at the end of it you're thinking, you know what you're confident and you know what direction to face, but what did you say? Whereas if you remember, and my thing is, did I laugh? Did I laugh? There's some acts I think are brilliant that I don't laugh at. Amstel as a stand-up, one of the most thought-provoking stand-ups I've ever seen, but I didn't laugh a lot. But God, he's brilliant. I absolutely loved his show.
More of an admiration as the craft.
The ideas that he's talking about and the themes. It's more like a one-person show of ideas and stuff, but nothing that made you weak with laughter like Harry Hill would, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Paul Curry from Belfast. You get a chance to see Paul Curry. Weak with laughter. Watching him properly screaming with laughter. I saw him at the Fringe in Edinburgh, and I'm so glad. I only saw about 3 shows. I'm so glad I took time out to see his, because it was just amazing. If you ever get a chance to see Paul Curry, go see him.
Did you go to the Fringe? I know you live in Scotland now, right?
Yeah.
Did you go? And you're not too far from Edinburgh. Did you go to the Fringe?
No. Well, I did. I do 3 shows a day. So, and again, that's just because I had an old show from last year, so I did that again, but then that turned into a new version of the old show. So that's what I love about stand-up. You're remixing your work constantly as you go. And that's what my agent always says to me. He goes, you take it on so far, you never do the same thing. And the show evolves and the story morphs as you go through. So I'm touring this autumn after, sort of Comedy Carnival's in the middle of my tour, really. And so I know that I'll be doing sort of a version of various things. I did like a 1-hour poetry show and 2 1-hour stand-up shows. So I've got the poetry show, there's a lot of stand-up in it. So I've got like 150 minutes of stand-up to choose from. But the thing is I tell long, rambly stories. It doesn't really suit the 20-minute format. So quite often when I do these 20-minute bits, it's like people are, but you didn't really get going. It takes me half hour to get going on 56. But I'm all, stay with it.
How are you finding the tour now in general? Because some comedians still like being on the road and others prefer, to kind of maybe stick to the TV stuff and do the smaller tours.
The thing is when you're in year 35 of the career, you're like sort of, that's a career. And so my thing is, I've had that now. I've done it. So there's nothing left to prove. And so I'd be quite happy to stop fairly soon, I think. It seems appropriate. So I've got a loose sort of plan at the minute to into next year to think about quitting and going to university.
Really? Do you know what you would study?
Fine art.
Really?
Yeah, because I did art when I was a kid, and which is how I got into performing. Which is I was an illustrator and cartoonist for fanzines, but I used to write poetry as well. And there's a poet in the UK who was very famous in the 80s called Attila the Stockbroker, and he got me on stage. He saw one of my poems I was doing some drawing work for him, and he saw a poem and he went, "You're performing that."
Was that the
tonight.
moment? Was that the moment
That
for
was
you?
the first time I went on stage, and it was sort of like it wasn't even an option. I'd never even thought about it. I was just writing them, and then suddenly I did it, and it was like, oh, this is a thing. And so then I started chatting to people at gigs, and then bit by bit, a gig here, a gig there. I had a mate who was at university. He was going out with a social secretary at a university. He got me my first paid gig. I got 20 quid to support a band called the Piranhas in Brighton. And then about 6 months after that, I supported Billy Bragg. You know, yeah.
So that moved pretty quickly then. If you're,
it was I mean, it was once. I mean, went from the. It was quite kind of gradual, but once. Then Billy took me out on tour a year later, so I did, and that was the sign to quit my day job. So March the 8th, 1985 was when I met Billy, and then March the 8th, March the 8th, 84 was the first gig, and March the 8th, 85 was the day I quit work. So literally a year after I met Billy Bragg, I quit my day job, and this, still getting away with it.
What's the camaraderie like between comedians of, I suppose, of your generation? Because I remember seeing it in a panel, which was a show on RT. What was it, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Which is a really Darryl Breen, which was, you know, was an inspired show sometimes. So is there, you obviously know Darryl quite well, but is there camaraderie there between?
No, because you know you do the same weird job, so there's points of reference. It was really interesting when I was on tour in the producers and more so with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, with Manford. That I'd never talked about the job, but like literally just the technicalities of doing the job and jokes and when you have a bad gig, your emotional reactions. And so I was on the road with Jason for a year in that musical.
You really get to know
somebody.
Yeah,
and so we shared accommodation together, and so we were always chatting about the job, and that was fascinating, and that's given me a different insight to it. And also. There's a brilliant comedian called Deborah Francis Wright. I say comedian, she's activist, author, you know, actress, you know, does all sorts of, God, she's all over the place. Podcaster, she does the Guilty Feminist podcast, and she made me look at the job very differently as well. There was just this thing, I mean, that what we were talking about earlier about meeting punters, and I was chatting to her like I was to you about, you know, sometimes they come up and they've got a weird energy, this, that and the other. And I just remember her saying, the thing is, Jupes, is that to you, it's just a minor inconvenience in your day. But to that person that comes up, that's something that they might be talking about for the rest of their life. Meeting you that one time and she said, even if not that, certainly the next month. Or you know, even if they don't like you that much, certainly a week, but it's something that you're now an event in their life. That interaction is an event in their life.
I mean,
and then she just ever since she said that, I'm like, oh God, I'm like very aware now.
Yeah,
Let's
enlightened. But even like in a movie junket setup, I would have done it for like a decade, and I would have flown back and forth and interviewed actors, a lot of movie stars, and I've spoken to like actors about this off camera and kind of chatted to them about it as well when you get to know it, where I've had huge movie stars ruined on me because how I've interacted with them, and then you kind of have to go to a certain point. It's different when it's professionally, but you have to go to a certain point. Some people are just having bad days as well.
Yeah.
There needs to be perspective from both sides.
Yeah. I think it's because when it's that solo attention thing, and it's just kind of.
And some people are great at it.
I never like that when people, as they ask questions, when they assume things about you, and. If they assume things, then they're waiting for a specific reaction, and I always hated that. I dig this sort of thing, chat. I always like chat because that's how I interview as well. It's like I have a starting point for a conversation. That's always what I used to do. Was I'd be aware of whatever it was they were talking about, their film or their book or whatever, and then I'd start a conversation. And also the other thing, because it was on the radio, I'd make them pick 2 records that they really love. And even if the interview went tits up, talk about the record. Make them talk about something positive. Then you always get something positive out of an interview, you know.
How do you think podcasting has changed comedy?
Oh God, yeah. I did a podcast.
You did one before it was trendy, I suppose.
Yeah. I did one. It's 10 years ago, I think. Yeah, called Phil and Phil's Perfect 10, which was very popular at the time. in that we did live gigs and would sell them out. We did the Screen on the Green in London. I still can't quite believe that. But yeah, it was just really, really simple idea that, you know, just thought we answer 10 questions, but we've only got half an hour to answer 10 questions, and we have to answer all 10 questions. So what would happen is so you'd answer at your own pace, and then you'd look at the clock. So you take like 8 minutes to answer the first one. You go, all right, come on, quick. That's 80 minutes. If we take 8 minutes on every one, come on. And so you speed up, and that's what's nice about it is but you work to the bell, and you have to answer all 10 questions. But there's been times when we've had 20 seconds to answer the 10th question, and been screaming at the microphones, which was great fun.
Is that something you'd go back to do? Maybe if you were going back to college to study fine arts?
There is some talk of maybe going back and doing the 10 again, just because it was a format that would never die, you know, and it generates its own material, and the audience were fiercely loyal. I've had people come up to me, are you ever going to do the 10 again? You know, I'm like, oh, well, not really, because I'm a great one for, you know, I do things for a while and I really enjoy it, and then I'm like, no, stop that, do something else. I think it is beholden to you as a creative person to wrong foot yourself, and that will necessitate you making bad decisions, and you will do self-destructive things, but that ultimately, you know, if they don't kill you, they're not that self-destructive. You know, the ultimate self-destructive act. Weird, it was National Suicide Prevention Day yesterday, but that's the ultimate act, isn't it? But, you know, in terms of self-sabotage, that's a recurring feature with performers, particularly solo performers, is the fact that they have either behaviours or make decisions that you know are bad for them. You know, but again, that's my thing. It's like, move on. Do something else. I'm a big believer in that, making a big change, which is why this stopping and going to uni is really, it's starting to, it takes me about 2 years of thinking about something before I do it, and I'm getting close to
consistent
I'm getting close to the 2 year point now where I'm like, yeah, I think this is going to happen, you know, so, but the problem is I didn't get A levels or anything, so I've got to go back and do, it's not like Rodney Dangerfield. Back to school. Oh, hey, Dean, stuck on this. No, it's going to be, I've got to do foundation course. So, yeah. So I've got to go back and do foundation. So.
Well, I hope you still continue to do some form of performance, be it podcast, be it whatever it is.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, when I stop, I love stopping. And I never exactly miss it. But I always, because you've got an ideas-based mind, you start to have, you're always having ideas. Yeah. You're always thinking of jokes, you're always thinking of poems, you're always writing, you're always creating. And then when a good one comes along, you say, oh, I could do that. Why am I not doing that? I could do that. And that's always what's brought me back, is when you know you've got a good idea, you know.
Well, Phil, thanks so much for coming in. I've admired your work for many years.
Pleasure, man. Yeah,
thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
You've been watching The Bells.